One of the major mysteries over US President Donald Trump's illegal war with Iran is why? Why did Trump choose this past weekend to start a conflict that's now spreading like wildfire across the region, not to mention heavily impacting global security, energy prices, and diplomacy? Well, here's the explanation that Trump gave just hours after setting the world on fire.
They've rejected every opportunity to renounce their nuclear ambitions, and we can't take it anymore. Instead, they attempted to rebuild their nuclear program and to continue developing long-range missiles that can now threaten our very good friends and allies in Europe, our troops stationed overseas, and could soon reach the American homeland. Just imagine how emboldened this regime would be if they ever had and actually were armed with nuclear weapons as a means to deliver their message. For these reasons, the United States military is undertaking a massive and ongoing operation to prevent this very wicked, radical dictatorship from threatening America and our core national security interests.
So, the justification the president gives there is that Iran has tried to continue its development of nuclear weapons and that it poses an imminent threat to US allies in Europe, as well as US forces in the Middle East and even the continental United States itself. No mention of Israel there, the country that joined Trump in his attack on Iran. There was also this bit from Trump's speech.
Finally, to the great, proud people of Iran, I say tonight that the hour of your freedom is at hand. Stay sheltered. Don't leave your home. It's very dangerous outside. Bombs will be dropping everywhere. When we are finished, take over your government. It will be yours to take. This will be probably your only chance for generations. For many years, you have asked for America's help, but you never got it. No president was willing to do what I am willing to do tonight. Now you have a president who is giving you what you want. So let's see how you respond. America is backing you with overwhelming strength and devastating force. Now is the time to seize control of your destiny and to unleash the prosperous and glorious future that is close within your reach.
As we'll see later on, Trump said something completely different within 24 hours. But anyway, more on that in a few minutes. Trump isn't explicitly making regime change an objective of the war there, but he's certainly suggesting that the US and Israeli bombing is intended to create a political vacuum that the Iranian people should try to fill. Now, there is only one country in the entire region, perhaps even in the entire world, that has a clear interest in Iran being left in chaos with no government and factional internal groups vying to take it over as a dysfunctional, broken state. A war zone. That country isn't the US. Wider turmoil in the Middle East, dead service members, disruptions to oil and gas supplies, and a global reputation for making an illegal mess and not cleaning it up don't serve core US interests. But a broken Iran, preferably one without any chance of building power and influence in the region, does serve Israel and its political and territorial ambitions. And who cares if the US ruins itself in the process? Well, last night, US Secretary of State Marco Rubio was asked to clarify Trump's grounds for war, and what he said was truly eye-opening.
The second question that's been asked is, why now? Well, there's two reasons why now. The first is it was abundantly clear that if Iran came under attack by anyone, the United States or Israel or anyone, they were going to respond and respond against the United States. The orders had been delegated down to the field commanders. It was automatic, and in fact, it bared to be true, because in fact, within an hour of the initial attack on the leadership compound, the missile forces in the south and in the north, for that matter, had already been activated to launch. In fact, those had already been pre-positioned. The third is the assessment that was made that if we stood and waited for that attack to come first before we hit them, we would suffer much higher casualties. And so the president made the very wise decision. We knew that there was going to be an Israeli action. We knew that that would precipitate an attack against American forces. And we knew that if we didn't preemptively go after them before they launched those attacks, we would suffer higher casualties and perhaps even higher those killed. And then we would all be here answering questions about why we knew that and didn't act.
There you have it, folks. An admission from a senior member of Trump's cabinet that the US went to war with Iran Because Israel wanted to. And the logic is batshit. So let's break it down. The United States knew that Israel was about to attack Iran, and they knew that if that happened, Iran would launch missiles at American bases in the region. So the conditional is this. If Israel attacks Iran, Iran will attack US bases. But rather than saying to Israel, hey, maybe hold back on your plans to start a regional war, potentially even a global conflagration, the US decided to go to war instead with Iran and join Israel. Iran wasn't the imminent threat under those circumstances. Israel was. And remember, all of this is happening in the context of what were ongoing US-Iran negotiations, which apparently now are meaningless because Israel decided to do something totally different. This is a country of 10 million people. Just hours before the bombing began, Iran's foreign minister, who was mediating those talks, was doing the news rounds saying that peace was on the table after Iran agreed to no nuclear weapons, no stockpiles of enriched uranium, and comprehensive inspections. In other words, a much better deal than the one Barack Obama negotiated over a decade ago. This would have been a triumph of diplomacy for Trump. But who definitely doesn't want a US-Iran peace deal? You guessed it, Israel. That's the last thing Israel wants. Iran coming closer to any kind of international acceptance. By the way, that's true also under Reza Pahlavi. Israel has absolutely no domestic political interest in Iran being remotely autonomous and able to assert its own interests. Donald Trump, you just got played by your buddy, Bibi Netanyahu, bigly. Not only did he play you, Netanyahu told his own people that he played you. We showed this clip last night, but it's worth playing again. It's Benjamin Netanyahu speaking once the bombing had begun.
אנחנו במערכה שבה אנחנו מביאים את כל כוחו של צה"ל כפי שלא היה מעולם למערכה הזאת כדי להבטיח את קיומנו ועתידנו. אבל אנחנו מביאים למערכה הזאת גם את סיועה של ארצות הברית, את ידידי נשיא ארצות הברית דונלד טראמפ, את צבא ארצות הברית, ושילוב הכוחות הזה מאפשר לנו לעשות את מה שאני מייחל לעשות כבר 40 שנה.
If you're listening on the podcast, what Netanyahu said there in Hebrew is that having the US on side in the fight against Iran is allowing him to do exactly what he's wanted to do for 40 years. Just to be clear, we'll talk about what that means in a minute. That was repeated by Benny Gantz as well today. Journalist Tucker Carlson has long been trying to expose Israel's oversized role in US foreign and domestic policy. Last night, he broke the situation down.
How did this tiny country with no resources and 9 million people convince the world's great superpower with the greatest military in history to do its bidding in a way that was going to hurt it? Well, again, many layers to that question, but the most obvious and immediate answer is because Bibi told the president of the United States, you can join me or not, but I'm going. And the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, said this in a call to congressional leaders yesterday. He said Israel said they were going. And at that point, you really only have two choices. You can get on board and try and help or contain Israel's war. That's part of the calculation here. Israel's going. Let's try and keep this within bounds. Let's try to be a moderating force on this adventure, whatever it turns out to be. Or you can tell Israel no, and they'll just do it. And if they did it, that would not protect us because there are hundreds of thousands of Americans in the Middle East, both in uniform and out, civilians and military personnel. And they're also the world's most important oil projects, energy infrastructure, oil and gas, which has more than any other factor a determining effect on the global economy. So everybody needs their oil and gas, period. You can't change that. Sorry. And so if that infrastructure is damaged or destroyed, it affects all of us, everybody, but us. So you can't just let Israel go and do this. Now, of course, there's a third potential theoretical option, which you say to Israel, which is a client state, which we pay for, whose creation we made possible. You say, no, we're not doing that. I get it. You don't like the Ayatollah. You don't like Iran. But this is bad for us, and we're not going to let you do this. And if you do it, we're going to, cut off aid, something, we can apply the pressure that is inherently ours to apply since we're paying for all of this. But that was not even on the table. That's never been on the table.
He's right. I mean, it does make you wonder, this journey that Tucker Carlson's on of being a quite intrepid truth teller about this kind of stuff is a story for another day. Before we go on, I also just want to talk quickly about what Netanyahu means when he's saying he's been waiting for this for 40 years. He means fundamentally he's been waiting to do this since the creation of the Islamic Republic of Iran in 1979, which of course was 47 years ago. And I think Benny Gantz actually said 47 years. He's been waiting 47 years. So this is not about Iran having nuclear weapons, because of course Iran wasn't developing nuclear weapons 47 years ago. This is about a state he doesn't like. And by the way, they don't like him. I get it. But that's the explanation here. This is about eliminating Iran as a peer rival in the region. Of course, Iran is not a peer rival anymore. It probably was before October 7th, but slowly its ability to project power has been degraded. But that's what this is all about. And there's a reason why Israel is so welcoming and accommodating to smaller minorities, right? Because of course, you've got 8 million Jewish Israelis and 10 million people in Israel overall. We're not including the occupied territories, etc. You've got 10 million people in Israel. 2 million of those are Arabs, okay? That's not many people. But they feel a lot bigger. They feel like a large nation compared to the Druze, right? They feel like a much bigger people compared to Kurds in Iraq, right? Which is why they generally, or the Maronites in Lebanon, which is generally why they kind of like these smaller groups. And they like these smaller groups because they can be useful in disintegrating the larger nation states who they view themselves in competition with. The project of Israel gaining regional dominance goes hand in hand with the demise of Egypt, Turkey, Iran. Egypt was done a long time ago. Egypt was done a really long time ago. That's basically where Israel was focusing its attentions in the 1950s. Now it's Iran. Okay? It was Syria not so long ago. It wasn't really a regional player. Now it's Iran. And tomorrow it'll be Turkey. That's the plan. A greater Israel where you don't have any peer rivals in the region. And again, you could say, well, that's what Israel's going to do. That's their set of national, security objectives. That's what they're going to pursue. I don't agree with it. Of course I don't agree with it. Why are we helping them? Why are we helping them dissolve the entire state system across West Asia? Why are we helping them create multiple failed states? They bombed Iraq when Saddam was there. They're attacking Iran, Yemen, Syria, Lebanon. They've attacked Egypt, everybody. Now, of course, in the Western media, you're told, well, that's because these countries are anti-Semitic. And of course, there are many people in all parts of the world who are anti-Semites. But Netanyahu was very clear there, wasn't he, Kieran? He said, this is something that entered his brain 47 years ago. This is about the elimination of a certain state. Mm-hmm. And people have to be really clear about this. It'll be Turkey next. Turkey, 95 million people, nuclear threshold state, big economy. These kinds of countries are not allowed to exist in the same neighborhood as Israel.
Yeah, and I think it's worth pointing out that Naftali Bennett, who is an Israeli prime minister, former prime minister no less, was only 2 weeks ago talking about the menace of Turkey in a news interview. And that is significant and relevant because probably next we will start to see the war junkie that is Israel turning its attention towards Turkey, as you rightly say. I think it's worth, Aaron, talking briefly about why Israel's doing this right now. It's the reasons have been expressed widely, but we'll restate them, and then I think it's worth just focusing on why is this the window of opportunity? Because I think it also answers the point that you made about why are we doing this? Why is America doing this? I think, so Israel is doing this for hegemony in the region, that's widely stated. It's doing this to eliminate any counterweight, check or balance, or counterbalancing force in the region. That's obvious, and that's been stated widely. And I think it's being done now for very specific reasons. Number one, Trump is in power, and Trump, for his own reasons, is very, very closely aligned with Netanyahu and with Israel. And I think it's worth saying that one of those reasons is that this, for him, functions as powerful Epstein distractionism. I think it's important to say that. We didn't say it on yesterday's show. I don't think it's come up yet tonight. That is definitely a significant factor for Donald Trump, and by extension for the United States, because if we look at the approval ratings for this in the United States and in Britain, they're very low, actually. In the United States, at the last poll, I think it was a Reuters poll, 47% of Americans disapproved of this, 43%, sorry, disapproved of this, 27% approved, and 29% don't know. That's really dismal as a poll performance for approval of this. So then we said, well, why is Donald Trump doing this? He is uniquely close to Israel. All US presidents have been close to Israel, but he is uniquely close to Israel. There is now enough evidence for us to say that confidently. Whether it's Jared Kushner, whether it's real estate, whatever it is, we could go on and on about it for ages, but he is uniquely close to Israel. And Epstein distractionism is definitely a factor in all of this for Trump. So Netanyahu and Israel have very clearly identified that they have a unique opportunity in this administration that may never come again in the same way. And this speaks to the second point. Why may it never come again in the same way? And actually, in a kind of irony, or in a counterintuitive way, Aaron, this gives us cause for longer-term hope. The second reason that Israel is seizing this moment and sees that the time is now is because they know how deeply unpopular Israel has become in the rest of the world. Right? They know that in most countries in the world, public opinion has significantly shifted against Israel. And for that reason, they have to seize this moment because they don't know what's going to come in 5, 10, 15, 20 years. And it might not just be little civil society. I mean, listen, I'm massively for BDS. And I think civil society movements do amazing things. But from the Israeli perspective, which is obsessed with the lens of the state and the military, they know that this is a real threat, not just because civil society groups have turned against Israel or popular, demographics have turned against Israel and so on. They're worried that that the next generation of politicians will have been conditioned by the past 2 to 3 years. They're really worried that the next generation of politicians across the allied countries, the West, will not be Keir Starmer and Donald Trump and those guys. It will be people who cut their teeth learning about this issue since October 7th, 2023, and the genocide in Gaza that's been, on our television screens very clearly. So that is why they are seizing this moment like no other. It's Trump alignment or administrative alignment with the US and knowing that Trump won't be there for very long, even if it seems like he'll be there forever right now. And the second thing is, related, they're terrified of the next generation of politicians in Western countries.
They've basically got 2 years of this guy, right, who is increasingly, cognitively challenged. And very much compromised by, frankly, US paedophile elites. Eyes are slowly opening everywhere, even amongst swathes of the craven liberal mainstream media who never, ever criticize Israel. This was from CNN with Jake Tapper and former US intelligence deputy director Beth Sanner.
The actual preemptive strike was because Israel was about to attack Iran to destroy its missiles. And because, and we had learned, the US had learned that if Israel did that, Iran was then going to attack US bases in the region. Is that right? Do I have that right? Is that what they're saying?
That's what they said this time.
Does that count as
That's not the definition of preemptive. If you are taking an action that creates someone doing something, then you're preempting a theoretical, and it also, I feel like it's very interesting that this is all based on the idea that, number one, we can't control Israel, and number two, our entire war with Iran is because of what Israel is doing. In other words, Israel is the tail wagging the dog.
The tail wagging the dog. She put it pretty perfectly, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I wish I'd thought of that phrase in this context myself. It is the tail wagging the dog. But the reason that it's able to use its smaller leverage and exert an outsized effect is precisely for the reasons that we've discussed, which is Israel. And actually, this is of a piece with this kind of provides a template, if you like, for what we can expect in the future if Israel is able to consolidate all its power in the region. kill off all of its counterbalancing regional hegemons like Iran, and exert total hegemony over the region, because Israel knows that popularity in the world has waned so massively. Its ability to project itself, subjugate the Palestinians, subordinate them, colonize all the land, is going to be defined by the resources that it accrues now.
Yeah, so true.
Right? So that is why they're boxing out at this moment in time, making the absolute most of this moment in time, Trump, Epstein, all of that figures in it, and grabbing as many resources as they possibly can now, taking out as many and projecting their force as much as they possibly can, so that it's almost like an insurance policy. It's almost like an insurance policy on the future, because they know that things have shifted very significantly outside of the corridors of power and those who are susceptible to the Israel lobby and so on. So they're really, really trying to make the very best of that as an insurance policy for the future.
Benjamin Netanyahu has appeared on Fox News to arrest the allegations that he leads the US president around by the nose.
You know, there are people that say, well, the prime minister of Israel dragged Donald Trump into it. And as somebody that's been friends with him over 30 years, nobody drags Donald Trump into anything, number one. But I want to get your reaction to that.
He looks like the devil, right? I mean, you're not meant to say that. He looks like the face shape as he starts to, he looks like the devil. He looks like a gargoyle. He's in his mid-70s, 74, 75?
I think he's 76.
76. I mean, that's something we haven't talked about, is that he also wants a legacy, right? And it's one hell of a legacy to take out Assad, Khamenei, Hamas.
Yeah.
Mortality figures in the political imaginary of these people when they're in their 70s. Now, we've clipped that because it's hilarious. He literally looks like Satan. What Netanyahu goes on to say is that nobody pushes Donald Trump around. And obviously, he'd say that. But we don't believe it. Nobody believes it. Not even, it turns out, Marco Rubio, not even Donald Trump believes it anymore. Kieran, before we go to our next story, you know, we've talked about Netanyahu, we've talked about the cause of a greater Israel. We haven't talked about, and we won't see it, this speech of Gavin Newsom. And I think what people are really underestimating is that, we're going to have a left candidate for the Democrats who's going to, you know, seize this mantle and criticize Israel. No, it's going to be that is going to be a mainstream position. Gavin Newsom is trying to win the center ground of the Democrats for his, you know, his campaign to be their candidate in a presidential election by criticizing Israel. You know, he's literally saying about Israel in Iran, why did you bomb a school? Why did we bomb a school? Why are 160 kids dead? Gavin Newsom. And I think when I saw that, Kieran, when I saw that, I just thought, okay, this is different now. Something really significant has shifted. Any thoughts?
I suppose one thought. AIPAC is obviously a highly bipartisan. AIPAC is the American-Israeli lobby group, basically, that tries to sow positive relations for Israel inside America among politicians and civil society groups into the future. AIPAC is very bipartisan. You know, it doesn't discriminate. It loves Republicans, it loves Democrats. And it has huge suction on both parties. And I know they've donated money to Gavin Newsom in the past. And so, you know, anything that Gavin Newsom does will be, I think, a political calculation. So this is not to... But you're right. You're right. If people like that, who have previously taken money from AIPAC, feel that their political antenna, and he's got a good political antenna, I think, I don't like him at all, but he's obviously reasonably successful and talented as a politician. If somebody with a political antenna like that is able to acknowledge the switch in the middle ground or in the mainstream of American public opinion and society and politics, such that he is now saying new things around Israel and new levels of criticism leveled at Israel, I think that is a significant step change. It's not a sea change, maybe, but it is a step change.
Well, I think it shows that politics has definitely shifted. I mean, the equivalent in this country is Wes Streeting intentionally leaking private WhatsApp messages to Peter Mandelson to exonerate himself, criticizing Israel, saying, actually, it's a genocide, right? This is a guy who's a member of Labour Friends of Israel. It's like the bat signal, right, to his constituents. Actually, I agree with you. It's a genocide. That's new. That is new. And I think what you said a few moments ago, You look at Newsom, you look at Streeting. That is the other side of the coin to how belligerent Israel is now being, right? These two things explain the other.